So we're here to talk through Prasanna's Transparent Tapa. It felt like a pretty challenging but fun puzzle to put on a Friday the 13th, and we hope that just as that sort of superstition is silly, that we know of the strategies in this video, you can not have anything to fear from this puzzle. The general ways to start are to actually deduce some special aspects of 1-3 clues in Transparent Tapa. So in a regular Tapa, 1-3 clue on the edge, you probably know forms one of two shaded patterns. This L with that cell, or this with that cell. And it's a little different in a puzzle where you can shade the 1-3 clue, but it's useful to think about the fact that you still need to get two groups of cells that have two white cells that split them apart. And what that really means, think about where the white cells could go. Can the white cells be on the far left and on the far right, or can the white cells be together? You can look and deduce for yourself that the middle needs to have one of the cells be unused for this clue. One will be white here, and then one on the left or one on the right will be white, but they will be non-touching cells that do it. A different way to see that, for instance, let's sort of shade it around this clue, is if the middle two cells in this 2x3 group are shaded, you can form a 3 region, but you can't form a 3 and a 1. And so if we actually go through the puzzle and mark some of the unshaded cells that we know, we get a few consequences that can do quickly. The first is around this clue, we know where the two unshaded are, so the outside to the left we can mark in, and we can do that in the 4 spots where those clues touch. And in particular, there's something cool we can do to get started, which is in this corner, which is that because there are going to be some unshaded cells here, this upper left cell is pretty difficult to think that it is shaded. And one thing you should think about in this puzzle is around 1-3 clues, it's pretty tricky to get the rest of the Tapa connected. If this is shaded and it can't get through the middle region, it effectively would have to come straight to the right or straight down. But what you'll see is that you can't do a straight clue near a 1-3 cell, that if all of those cells are shaded, once we put in the unshaded cells around the group, there's no region for the singleton cell to fit. And so the connectivity in this puzzle makes it a challenge for a lot of spots, but in particular, the first thing you should be able to see is this cell can't possibly be shaded, and there are 2 or 3 different reasons for that. And when you find one of them, you can get to shading the first parts of the puzzle, which are these. And I'm just going to circle the clues as I fulfill them. The next kind of deduction that will work a lot in this puzzle is to, again, think of connectivity, and that once we've started to engage this clue, it's clear that the group of 3 cells includes these 2. This has to connect back to the rest of the Tapa. And so can the 3rd cell be this cell, or can it be this cell? Well, that's going to strand the rest of the group around this clue. There's no more cells to shade, so necessarily you can shade the one in the upper right corner. That completes the 3 clue. It also completes the 3 clue for this one, which leaves the singleton, and we get a cell up here which needs to be used to connect the thing. Now we get into a cluster of clues which hold a somewhat tricky deduction, but probably a necessary one to move forward, which is, again, if we think about this shaded cell, we can say 2 things. The first is that it is part of the 3 block for this clue, that it's going to take at least one more cell to the left, or sorry, to the right or below, and that's going to make it the 3. If we look at this spot, it's going to, because it's going to use one of these cells, it's also the 3 for this clue. So the question is, can it, in the last case, also be the 3 for the clue on the left? And if you thought about that, if this were also the 3 for here, that requires you to shade fully down, and we already told you that there's a problem with having a group of 1x3 cells that goes through one of these clues. There's nowhere for the singleton to sit here, and so while you know it's the 3 for the middle and right of these clues, this is the one for the left clue that you can't go through the middle blocks. So we can actually shade that unused in this way, put this in, and get to a spot like this, which helps us actually escape through this group finally, that we need to be connected to the rest of the grid here. It's going to have to get through a channel here, and so for instance if this cell is shaded, it blocks off each of the ones that are exits, and so we could say pretty cleanly that the top of that group and the bottom of this group and these for connectivity are used. So we have a few places for our next step to come. One is to still try to finish out some of the deductions over here. We've placed the 1 clue, but we need a 3 to be fulfilled. It can use at most one of the cells of these 3 cells, and there are 5 total, so it must use these 2 plus one of these to only add one more cell around here. But it's now, because it's also touching this clue, it can only use one of the cells in this space, and so to make this a 1 and to make this a 1, it's going to have to use those cells. Now we get to a situation where we're going to do some similar thinking about this triplet of spaces. The 1, 3 down here, these 2 cells certainly form the 3 for this group, but because one of the cells is out of the view of this, there's no way this can be the 3 over here. So you can deduce, because you're only adding one more cell shaded around this, you can't add 2 and get up to this count, that this is a 3 and a 1. This region is fulfilling both of those roles in a connected way. So that's not used. This must be shaded. Finish that up. For this to be connected, we've got to come around like this. The 3 clue doesn't leave a lot of room to get around it, so we're going to need to use an efficient path. So we're going to have to escape down and around like this. One more cell here is used. We're not sure which, but what we can do, like we did before, is we need to fulfill this 3 clue now. At most one of the cells here is used, 2 over here are used. We've talked about that sort of thinking before. What you can see further is now we know one of these 2 cells is used, so this will finish this 3 group collectively. Whichever way it goes, we don't know which one it uses yet, but we've shaded off a cell that's going to give us some information there. And again, what this needs to do is also get connected around this 1, 3 group, and we saw before, like shading the middle one would X off 2 of these, leave no exit. That's the same case on this part of the clue, so of the 2 options, only one allows the whole grid to get connected. And once we know that, we can resolve some of these either-or options that are present in the puzzle. These 2 clues are touching. The 3 has been used, the 1 has been used, that's this group, so we need to make a large group that only has 1 cell in the space. We've seen that kind of situation before, so again, we shade 2 up top. We know one of these is used, we don't yet know which. And right now we have sort of one more step where I think you need to necessarily sort of think big picture to get through, and it's going to be up here. So we have the 3 group identified. It's going to get one more cell here, and that's going to equal the 1 group over there. And what we need to do is fill in 3 cells. And so this is almost even kind of rule that comes up in Minesweeper or painting puzzles of other sorts, is while there are 4 total cells shaded around this, and 2 of them are marked, that means that if there are also 4 cells shaded around this, 2 plus a group of 2 within this box means there are 2 shaded over here in this space. And you can ask yourself which ones those are. Well, the consequence of this getting only one more cell is that there's going to be a blocker so that there's no connectivity from the Tapa around this end, which means that whichever cells are shaded over here, they've got to be able to escape out to the bottom. Specifically, that means if you shaded this corner, there's no way to get out and only use 2 cells in this group. And so to be able to be connected, the 2 cells that are used in the right column for that clue are these. One of the 2 cells here is shaded, that's going to be the one for that clue, so we're doing okay. But we need to now also get out and back to the rest of the grid, and so again we need an efficient path. We saw that over here where we had to just sort of snake straight by. This is going to need to come straight by this clue, or it's never going to connect. once we figure that out, we can actually resolve the exact either or choices up here. And still have connectivity come in play. One of these cells is used from the one clue. You can ask yourself which space is going to be the 3, and in particular, can the 3 connect through the middle here, or is it going to, the Tapa need to come to the left? And so that these cells are connected, there's really not a path that uses just 3 cells and also gets further out. So the Tapa, as a first step, needs to use that space. Now we come to the fact, if we shade in this single cell, can we come to the left with it, or do we need to come to the bottom with it? And that comes down to general counting. So for instance, if you shaded the top one, it's going to have to come to the left. Now we've shaded 2 cells, but we can't shade this one or that one. We can't shade a 3rd cell. And so a sort of sneaky step right now in this puzzle is that the bottom of those is shaded. And now we actually have one of the more constrained of the 1-3 situations we've hit, which is it's going to need to shade 3 of the remaining 4 cells, but we know we're going to need to have an unused cell over here. So the way that gets 3 cells is exactly this. By connectivity, the connection over here is this. And we're finally at the last step of this puzzle, which is maybe a tricky sort of setup that it turns out there's only one way, given needing to connect these groups all together, that we can fulfill this clue. And this is the one that may just sort of come directly from trial and not from anything else. I guess a few kinds of ways you can go at this is to think about where to place the singleton in the 4 corners and where the 3 is gonna fit around this clue. So for instance, can the singleton be here? No. The 3 is there, but the single is stranded. Can the singleton be here? No. The remaining 3 blocks everything off. Can the singleton be here? Well, no. Once you actually get connectivity up here, you get another off there, and so we've excluded all options but the one that works. So of the 4 possible ways to fill that clue, this one gets the 1-3 and leaves a single channel in these cells to finish. And so that was a pretty interesting and challenging puzzle, pretty incredibly themed. I think Prasanna likes the 1-3s, and we hope you've survived this Friday the 13th and enjoy puzzling again with us later. Thanks.